The conversation around how the cost of living in Nigeria is leaving much to be desired is the current situation that many are having to come to terms with while adapting to a harsh new reality and hoping for a change. That's our focus on Special Report.
First things first, the cost of living crisis is not peculiar to Nigeria alone. In the UK, living standards have spiraled way beyond the pre-pandemic dispensation, where the most financially insolvent households are £4,500 the worst the wear from that period till now.
I want to make 5 promises to you today. 5 pledges to deliver peace of mind. 5 foundations on which to build a better future for our children and grandchildren. First, we will halve inflation this year to ease the cost of living and give people financial security. Second, we will grow the economy, creating better paid jobs and opportunity right across the country. Third, we will make sure our national debt is falling so that we can secure the future of public services. Fourth, NHS waiting lists will fall and people will get the care they need more quickly. Fifth, we will pass new laws to stop small boats, making sure that if you come to this country illegally, you are detained and swiftly removed. So, 5 promises. We will halve inflation, grow the economy, reduce debt, cut waiting lists, and stop the boats. Those are the people's priorities. They are your government's priorities, and we will either have achieved them or not. No tricks, no ambiguity. We're either delivering for you or we're not.
In North America, the prices of everyday items in Canada increased over the past year.
We know prices are going up. We know grocery bills and rent and gas prices are squeezing them in so many different ways, which is why we've stepped up as a government with targeted support that's going to help millions upon millions of Canadians. It's great news that this week we passed the GST credit. That means we're doubling the credit for 6 months in checks that are going to be arriving in the coming weeks to 11 million households across this country. It'll make a real difference in the rising cost of living for so many Canadians. And we're moving forward with direct support for low-income renters. It'll hit about 2 million people, almost 2 million people, with a $500 top-up that will really, again, make a difference with the rising cost of living. We were pleased that the Conservative Party actually supported our measures on GST credits for 11 million households. They changed their initial objection to what we proposed and supported it, which is a good thing. But we now need them to stop blocking the dental and rental supports that we're putting out, because far too many Canadians need extra support, and political parties need to work together to be there for Canadians.
To wit, around the world, the cost of food, the cost of energy, and other everyday essentials have been on the rise since 2021. This also rings true in Nigeria, and one of the challenges the advent of the President Bola Tinubu administration is contending with.
I had promised to reform the economy for the long-term good by fighting major imbalances that has plagued our economy. Ending the subsidy and the preferential exchange rate system were key to this fight. This fight is to define the fate and future of our nation. Much is imbalance. Thus, the effect in our economy immensely profited a tiny elite, the elite of the elite, you might call them. As we move to fight the flaws in the economy, the people who grow rich from them predictably will fight back through every means necessary. But we are ready. Our economy is going through a tough patch, and you are being hurt by it, I know. The cost of fuel has gone up. Food and other prices have followed it. Households and businesses struggling. Things seem anxious and uncertain. I understand the hardship you face. I wish there were other ways, but there is not. If there were, I would have taken that route, as I came here to help, not to hurt the people and the nation that I love so dearly. What I can offer in the immediate is to reduce the burden of current economic situation, which has imposed on all of us, most especially on businesses, the working class, and most vulnerable among us. Already, the federal government is working closely with states and local governments to implement interventions that will cushion the pains of our people across socio-economic brackets.
If Lagos is Nigeria's commercial capital and prices are high in Nigeria, where will you see the man in the mirror? The answer is a no-brainer. So we set off to see the true nature of things in the market. Destination Alhaji Abibatu Mogaji Day and Sunday Market in Ijaye Ogba, Ojodu LCDA. The attractive red sheen of the tomatoes. The open bag of Gary beckons to buyers. This Mount Rushmore of grain is a triple threat. But buyers taking the bait are few and far between because cost is on the high side. There's a clear decrease of customers.
Gbogbo nǹkan wọn ó sú wa o. Owó tá fi ń ra báàgì mẹ́wàá tẹ́lẹ̀ la fi ń ra báàgì méjì. Ọjà tí wọ́n jù. Ike gàrí 2,500.
Everything is very expensive. We are tired. The amount of money we used to buy 10 bags of gari before is what we use for only 2 bags now. A measure of plastic container of gari is 2,500 naira. This is too much. Please, government should help us. Look at the whole market. No customers. People are not eating well.
2,500 naira ike gari kan.
Onions can bring tears to the eyes, just like these prices.
Èmi ò ní nǹkan tí mo fẹ́ sọ torí àwọn tán jù wá lọ tó jà wá ta kéré lọ tán ti ń sọ àrí changes kankan.
I don't have anything to say because our elders have been saying it, but there are no changes. We're just talking. There's no change. The energy I will use to put on weight, I don't want to waste it on talking and talking. We'll rather ask God to help us. Look at people. When you tell them prices, they will quarrel with you. And it's not our fault that things are this way. And it's because there's no money and people are irritable. So if I talk, it doesn't mean it'll change. When you tell some customers the price, they just get angry. And you'll just be looking at them, wondering how stressed out they are. We don't want anyone to faint in front of us.
It's the same for palm oil, vegetable oil, stockfish, fish, and the peppers.
Everything is expensive. What we are experiencing is unexpected. There is no money and everything is expensive. Children are out of school. There are no jobs for them. We really believe things will be okay with this new administration, but we are suffering. Everybody is suffering. We are hungry. The government should bring down prices of food. I have never experienced this since I was born. 2,500 for gari. We have hope that the government will make things better.
gbogbo wa kan wa máa balẹ̀ nísìn ara ni wa o wọ́n jọ o.
Okra is expensive these days. This Harmattan season, a bag of okra costs 17 to 18,000 naira. It's a small bag. Before, 500 naira worth of okra is enough for the whole family, but now it is nothing to write home about. How can a family of 3 to 5 people make do with this small quantity? It is too expensive. The price you will find today is not the price you will find tomorrow. Everything is very expensive. We are tired.
Báwo ni tó ná ọmọ mẹ́ta mẹ́rin báwo ọjọ́ mélòó ẹ fi jẹ la 500.
Generally ọ̀rọ̀ ẹran sìn ó ní agbára jù everyday ló wọ́n sí.
Meat selling is a real challenge for now. Everything is more expensive. What we formerly sell for 400 naira is now sold for 780 naira or 800 naira. Since we started selling meat, this is the most costly year yet. A cow we used to buy for 500,000 naira is now 1 million naira. Our customers are complaining. Please talk to government to help bring down prices. If you're buying 5,000 naira worth of meat, it's okay. But if it's you and the children, it won't be enough. You need to buy 10,000 naira to 15,000 naira worth of meat.
Whether it's the tomato seller, or the okra seller, or the meat seller, or the gari seller, everything they're saying is the same. The prices of things have become much more expensive than previously anticipated, and all are calling on the federal government for intervention, or the state government for that matter, or any authorities that is so concerned in this regard.
According to the National Bureau of Statistics, comparing the current inflation rate on a year-on-year basis, prices have jumped in the range of 7 to 8%. Headline inflation jumped from 21.34% in December 2022 to 28.92% in December 2023. Food inflation from 23.75% in December 2022 to over 33% in December 2023. A same big jump for core inflation, urban and rural inflation. Our next port of call is the offices of the financial expert Mr. Bismarck Rwani for a clearer perspective on the current situation.
It's a symptom of a much more structural problem. Much more structural.
In Nigeria's case, is the cost of living crisis related to the global trend?
Firstly, let us be honest. There was a global, and there is a global cost of living crisis. But the magnitude in certain markets is much more intense than in certain places. And the intensity of the crisis and the impact depends to a large extent on how structural the problems are. A cost of living crisis, which is defined as when real wages are much lower than the cost of living index, right? So what you have is that effectively the people are earning less, right, and living worse off than they were earlier than this point. So there is a cost of living crisis. Part of it is structural. In Nigeria is structural. Part of it is transient, and part of it is a spillover effect from other markets. But underlying this are two things. One, the COVID crisis and the spending to reactivate the economies. And two, the Ukraine war, which actually disrupted supply chains. When you added that into the fact that there was low interest rates and what we call quantitative easing at the same time. So all of these things came together to push inflation as high as 11% in certain parts of Europe and about 9-10% in the United States. When you transfer that into a country like Nigeria, which has fundamentally an exchange rate weakness, so you have the cost of the products that are imported, you have the translation effect or the transmission effect of a weaker currency. The naira has fallen cumulatively by over 80 or 90% in the last 5-6 years. So in certain cases, it went all the way from 300 to what it is now, 1,500. When you factor that into prices and the fact that wages, nominal wages, 30,000 naira minimum wage a year, a month, and effective wages are actually much lower than that. So it's not a surprise that you have poverty, multi-dimensional poverty, extreme poverty, and low productivity at the same time. This is a classic example of a cost of living crisis which is not abating anytime soon.
Is the current administration demonstrating sufficient know-how to bring about an economic rebound?
A cost of living crisis is oblivious of what administration. The price of a loaf of bread doesn't care. It doesn't change because May 29 happened. There's a time lag between when an administration takes over, when it analyzes the problem, when it puts in policies in place, and when the impact is felt. And don't forget, the same party that was in office before May 29, same party in office now. So there's some form of continuity. Having said that, the crisis itself is not just time-bound, and it has no boundaries. Therefore, the Nigerian people, after the celebration and all the protocols, are having to deal with the price of a loaf of bread, the price of a bag of rice, and the price of a bag of beans. And that is what is happening. The prices of these goods, in real terms, have increased. The rate of inflation in Nigeria is as high as 30% right now. Food inflation is about 33%, and depending on how you measure it. So at the same time, companies have increased their salaries. Companies have increased the wages of the people at the bottom. But it's not enough, because the acceleration of prices is much faster than productivity on one hand, and of course, much faster than wages on the other.
New administration, new energy. Are there any policies that you see as propelling Nigeria into an economic state of fortune?
Well, I think so. I mean, the reality is that I haven't seen tangible and effective steps yet, but I've heard very, very promising announcements. The first big step I saw was in the last few days when the rate of interest on treasury bills moved from 5% to 17%, which means that it is moving closer in the direction of inflation. What we need to see also is an increase in productivity. What we need to see is fiscal consolidation, in which case government spending, right, is much more efficient and targeted and impactful, so that you have certain, we can begin to see productivity gains. Also, and very important, is the fact that the government needs to be more transparent in the way government spending is done, so that there are no speculation as to whether there are leakages, because leakages have a negative multiplier effect. But what are the things that are stoking inflation? I think that's the most important thing. One major item in the inflation stoking factor is the price of diesel. The price of diesel today is 1,351 naira. It was 800 naira in May last year. So it's virtually doubled. The second stoking factor is the money supply. Money supply growth has gone up by 51%, which means essentially we are printing money, right? Thirdly is the exchange rate. It was 740 to 800 naira in May last year. It's now 1,500. So effectively, all these inflation stoking factors have doubled. Wages are still the same. Productivity is still hampered. And there's a time lag between, like I said earlier, time lag between when you announce policies and when you get the effect. So what can the government do? The government can actually have an investment-led strategy, which is what they're trying to do. But to do that, you need to come to terms with your creditors. Nigeria's creditors are happy and clapping that we are saying the right things, but they have not seen, they're not feeling that effect yet. In other words, we need to go to our creditors, come up with a plan on how to refinance our existing bond obligations so that new money in dollars come in. We have to open up our foreign exchange market for transparent processes so that people can then know that $1 equals this, and when I want the dollar, I'll get it. We need to remove all the restrictions so that people are free to bring their money in and free to take their money out. And the Central Bank of Nigeria can intervene in the market whenever they think the naira is a bit weak, they put more dollars in. And when they think the naira is too strong, they just calm down. So I think the framework for doing these things is in place. It is now the impetus to just take it off. So I don't think it doesn't serve any purpose to blame government officials or no, but it's good to remind everybody in office that it's not a time to be distracted, and this is not a time to try to misrepresent the facts to the Nigerian people.
At times, financial analysis is interpreted as Egyptian hieroglyphics. What everyone wants to know in layman's terms is, will things get better, and when?
No, it's going to be difficult for some time before the recovery starts. In other words, do not think that there will be a silver bullet. There's a couple of things that will happen. The Dangote refinery is going to help guarantee supply and quality, especially in all the refined products, right? From diesel to dual-purpose kerosene to lubricants and then finally PMS. That will help. The infrastructure spending or the concessioning of roads will help because that logistics cost is a major cost element. The management of government finances is where I really have a problem, because there's a lot of leakage and a lot of abuse of government processes. I think the administration has to come down heavily on that, so that Nigerians can see that sacrifice is being shared equally, both in the public sector and in the private sector. That is what I think. But generally speaking, the prices of goods in Nigeria are likely to increase a little bit more. I think in January we are looking at almost 30%. It will increase to about almost 30-35% in the middle of the year before declining. It begins to decline towards the end of the year. All projections show that we'll close the year with an inflation rate of about 23 or 22%, much lower than 30%. All indications point to the fact that if the central bank makes the process of foreign exchange management and the market opening up to an auction system, the naira should appreciate towards the end, in the second half of the year, if it is done transparently. And they've already done the question of moving interest rates up. So when you do that and manage the money supply, you begin to see a slow but consistent recovery, but no silver bullet. I don't think it's in the best interest of Nigerians to be lured or deceived into a false sense of hope. No. There's hard work to be done, and a lot of sacrifices to be made, definitely.
Everyone wants to know, in layman's terms, is, given that it seems that one has to just make do with whatever situation one finds oneself, and you've mentioned that the government should be fiscally prudent in their spending, what more do you think can be done on the side of the government? Because the people, all they want to understand is that something is being done for the prices to go down.
Well, I think two things are going to happen. One, the whole question of minimum wage review is going to take center stage. I think the government has to be extremely careful about wage review. Wage reviews in the past have almost ended up as a poison chalice.
Thank you so much for
talking
to us, Mr. Roman.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Traders in Yobe State gather at the Eid ground in Potiskum, the state's commercial town, for prayers. The chairman of the association, Mr. Nasir Mato, told journalists that the removal of the fuel subsidy created hardship for buyers and sellers.
This example, high cost of materials like food items, other things. Since the government removed this subsidy, seriously, we marketers, we are facing serious challenges, serious ones. Especially during this time, things are hard. Things are not easy. There is no money, no food. People are hungry. To me, I'm not taking palliatives as a way forward, because we have a lot of youths who are seeking for jobs, who want to join us for businesses. So that is, if you give palliative to somebody, it's just a matter of 1 day or 2 days, it will finish. What is the other days that are coming? Well, we are hoping, we are calling on the federal government, the state government, and other local governments to at least make a committee so that to subsidize this thing for us, not palliatives.
The bottom line is the waiting game on when an easing of prices will come about and how this will continue to affect Nigerians in the short term, and the anticipation that the measures put in place by the government will have a desirable outcome. For Special Report, I'm Olumide Macaulay. Thank you for watching.